In the plot rundown of the movie, Orphan 2009, you are going to see a couple who adopts a mysterious girl who appears to be a 9-year-old child, but is, in reality, a mature woman harboring dark secrets. The movie opens at a hospital where Kate and her husband John walk in, and Kate is clearly pregnant and clearly in labor. While John registers at the front desk in the lobby, Kate is wheeled towards the delivery room, but a painful contraction hits and Kate sees she is bleeding heavily. The nurse pushes the wheelchair along as if nothing is happening, but the audience can see blood trailing behind the wheelchair. In the delivery room, Kate is in a lot of pain and asks where John is, but nobody will tell her anything. The doctor tells her to relax, but Kate knows something is wrong with her baby. Before she has time to think, the doctor grabs his scalpel and begins to cut into Kate's stomach. Kate yells and screams as the doctor cuts into her. After a few seconds, a baby's cry is heard and the nurse hands her a stillborn baby covered in a bloody blanket. Kate screams in horror and springs up in bed after her nightmare. She creeps out of bed without waking John and goes to the bathroom. For a moment, she stares at the large incision scar that goes from her belly button all the way to her abdomen. She pops an antidepressant pill into her mouth and then crawls back into bed with John. The next morning, Kate goes to see her therapist, Dr. Browning. Kate says that perhaps the nightmares are happening because she and John are seeing children that same week so they can adopt one. She also says that she passed by the liquor store on the way to the office. Dr. Browning asks if she went inside, but Kate says she didn't. However, she was extremely tempted. Dr. Browning says that she is able to resist that temptation, then she is most certainly able to hold her own as an adoptive mother. Kate goes straight from Dr. Browning's office to a school for the deaf or hearing impaired. She is greeted by her 5-year-old daughter, Max. Max holds up a picture she drew and Kate says in sign language that it's very beautiful. As Kate is driving home with Max in her car, she spots a young pregnant woman with her child walking together. Kate is so distracted that a large truck almost hits her. Back at home, Kate is playing the piano while something constantly keeps banging against the house. Finally having enough, Kate goes outside and sees Max attempting to shoot a basket. Kate tells her to stop and Max says that she is sorry, but Kate apologizes and says she shouldn't have yelled. Seconds later, John pulls up in the driveway with their son, Danny, who takes the ball from Max and shoots a hoop. Kate tries to say hello to Danny, but he rushes past her to go and play. Later in the night, Kate goes to tuck Max into bed. Max removes her hearing aid, so everything goes silent for a while. Through sign language and subtitles for the audience, Max asks her to read a bedtime story. The story is about Max and how happy she was that she was getting a baby sister, but then baby Jessica died and went to heaven. Max was happy that Jessica was in heaven, but wishes that she could have met her. After the story, Max asks if baby Jessica is an angel, to which Kate responds by saying yes. After kissing Max goodnight, Kate goes to the bedroom to take her antidepressant. She is startled when John suddenly appears from behind her. Kate and John crawl into bed and Kate says that even though she isn't having second thoughts about adopting, she is excited and nervous. She hasn't felt this way since she thought they were going to bring baby Jessica home. John says that they shouldn't adopt for his sake, but Kate says they aren't, and that she really wants to take the love she had for Jessica and share it. The next morning, Kate and John go to St. Mariana's orphanage for girls. When Kate and John get out of the car, they are greeted by Sister Abigail, who thanks them for coming. As they walk inside, someone is watching them from a window. When Kate gets the feeling that they're being watched, she looks up to the window but sees nothing. Kate and John separate as Kate is shown the girls by Sister Abigail while John goes to use the bathroom. Kate and Sister Abigail watch the girls play and Sister Abigail says that adopting an older child isn't an easy decision to make, but Kate says they're ready. John leaves the bathroom and goes to look for Kate but stops when he hears the sound of a girl singing. He follows the singing and sees a young girl sitting alone in a room, painting. John begins to walk away, but the girl suddenly greets him. John steps into the room and the girl introduces herself as Esther, and John begins to look through her paintings. They are extraordinary, since Esther seems so young. John asks Esther about the painting she is working on, and Esther says that each of her paintings tell a story and that in her current painting, a mother lion is sad because she can't find her cubs. Kate and Sister Abigail walk in, and John introduces Kate to Esther. Esther talks to John and Kate, and soon the couple agrees that Esther is the one that they want to adopt. They speak to Sister Abigail in her office, and she mentions that Esther is a rather mature 9-year-old and says that she is very smart and very polite as well. She also mentions that Esther is like a princess because she wears ribbons around her neck and wrists at all time. Sister Abigail says she will file the paperwork as soon as possible. John and Kate take Esther home, and Max rushes out to greet them. Esther uses sign language to greet her, and Max takes an instant liking to her new sister. However, Danny isn't fond of her and even asks John, rather loudly, why Esther is dressed so differently, and John quickly shushes him. Esther is thrilled when she sees that they have a piano, and Kate offers to teach her to play, and Esther accepts instantly. John, Kate, and Max show Esther her bedroom, and Esther says that it's perfect and she loves it. Esther is also introduced to Barbara, who is John's mother and Esther's new grandmother. A few days later, a celebration is being held in honor of Esther's adoption, and this includes presents and cake, almost like a birthday party. Danny doesn't seem eager to join the family's celebration and instead plays Guitar Hero with his friend. Esther gives John a huge hug and smiles at Danny from over his shoulder. Danny tells his friend that the game is getting boring and he leaves. Danny's friends then follow him out into the woods near the house. They go to Danny's treehouse and Danny lifts an old board to reveal hidden Playboy-type magazines. Kate is in the kitchen, putting away the cake and speaking with Barbara about what she plans to do. Kate says that she'll begin her teaching job again but plans to give piano lessons to kids from the house. Barbara leaves the kitchen and Kate goes back to doing the dishes. Later that night, Kate is now happy to successfully adopt a child, so she plans to have sex with John. However, Esther creeps out of her bed like a ghost and goes to see Max. Intentionally, she interrupts the couple along with Max, pretending they're afraid of lightning, all with the aim of sleeping with them. The next morning, Kate is sending Max and Danny off to school and calls Esther downstairs. Esther comes downstairs wearing a dress that is old-fashioned and outdated, which causes Max and Danny to laugh a little bit. Kate sends them to the bus and tells Esther that most girls don't dress like that anymore and she should change, but Esther says that she likes to wear such dresses. The kids arrive at school, and the teacher introduces Esther to her class. A girl named Brenda teases her because of her dress. Esther says nothing, only stares coldly and walks calmly to her seat. Back at home, Kate sees Esther pulling Max on a sled over an icy pond. She rushes outside and yells for Esther and Max to get off of the ice and scolds them for playing in such a dangerous area. In the woods, Danny is shooting paintballs and seems to be enjoying it. Soon, a bird lands on the target and Danny shoots it on purpose. He becomes upset when the bird doesn't move and rushes to see if it's all right. Esther and Max suddenly show up and Esther asks what happened. Esther picks up a large brick and asks Danny to put it out of its misery, but Danny refuses. After a while, Esther takes the brick and beats the bird to death and then throws the brick aside. Danny runs off, horrified by Esther's actions. Later that night, Kate runs a bath for Esther and goes to do laundry but hears Esther lock the door and immediately goes to check if she is all right. Kate warns that they do not lock doors in the house, but Esther says she's afraid that someone would see her. Kate assures her and says she won't even go downstairs until she is done. Esther says she will sing for her because she used to sing to the nuns at the orphanage so that they would know she was all right when she was taking a bath. Kate agrees and goes to finish the laundry. As Kate is putting away Esther's clothes and listening to her sing, she finds that one of Esther's drawers is stuck. After some tugging and pulling, Kate discovers a Bible with a photo of a man inside of it. Kate accidentally drops the Bible and Esther's singing goes quiet, but starts back up after a minute. Kate shoves the Bible back in its hiding spot, and as she goes down the hall to Max's room, Esther opens the bathroom door and looks coldly out. Obvious, she knew what Kate was up to. The next day at school, Esther is passing down the hall at the same time as Danny purposely knocks some books out of Esther's hands. As Esther kneels to pick up the book, Brenda comes along and sees that the book is a Bible, so she calls Esther a Jesus freak. Esther tries to take the Bible from Brenda, but it soon falls to the floor and the pages scatter everywhere. Brenda reaches to pull off the ribbon around Esther's neck, but becomes startled when Esther screams and kicks as though she was possessed. The same day, Kate is giving Esther a piano lesson and Esther castigates herself because she made 11 mistakes. Kate wants to talk about what happened at school, but Esther says that there isn't anything to talk about. Kate then shows her some family photos from the past, to which Esther laughs in a hollow and insincere manner. When Esther asks about baby Jessica, Kate takes her to their garden where they've lovingly interred Jessica's ashes. They bloomed into vibrant flowers, a poignant tribute to keep her memory alive in nature's embrace. Esther feigns sadness and pretends to cry, only to earn Kate's trust. Later that night, John returns from work and the couple start to make out in the kitchen. Esther strolls around like a ghost and sees them in the act. The following morning, Kate talks to her about last night and tries to teach her about the things that only adults do, believing she's just a kid. However, Esther behaves like a grown-up woman and responds with an F word, leaving Kate in a shock. Kate explains everything to John and starts to suspect that something's wrong with the girl, but John is unable to believe her because he's stupid. Kate is worried that they don't know anything about her past, which is so ironic because these stupid parents should have done some research in the first place before adopting a creepo. The next day, John is with Max and Esther at the park, pushing Max on the swings. His beautiful next-door neighbor arrives in risque clothing and flirts with him. Esther listens in on her conversation with John, but suddenly becomes distracted when she sees Brenda walking across the playground. After his neighbor leaves, John becomes a bit nervous and goes to smoke a cigarette while Esther and Max begin to roam the playground. Brenda is also nervous as she makes her way towards the slide. She then gets the feeling that she is being followed. As she looks down the slide, Esther comes from behind her and pushes her off. Brenda is in a great deal of pain from a broken ankle. Esther walks away but realizes Max has seen everything. At supper, John and Kate are asking Esther about what happened, but she says that she and Brenda were playing and she accidentally fell. Kate asks Max if she saw what happened and Max says that Brenda simply slipped. Max then signs something to Danny, but he can't understand her. Esther interrupts and tells him that Max asked for him to pass the bread and butter. Danny gets furious and behaves rudely, to which John orders him to apologize to his sister. Danny denies and rushes from the table. The parents then observe Max imitating Esther's physical actions as if she were mentally possessed by her. As a punishment for Danny's outburst, John locks up Danny's treehouse and says he will unlock it when Danny apologizes to Esther. The same day, Kate surprisingly discovers Esther playing the piano flawlessly, leading her to realize that Esther had lied about not knowing how to play. Kate once more mentions everything to John, but he doesn't believe her because he is stupid. Kate then mentions Esther's claims about John hitting on his beautiful neighbor earlier in the park, but he denies. This brings up a furious argument between the couple, and we see Esther listening to them and smiling. A few days later, Sister Abigail comes for a visit after being informed of Brenda's accident. As Kate and John speak with Sister Abigail about the accident, Esther eavesdrops on their conversation. Sister Abigail reveals that she finally did some research after a decade and discovered that something is wrong with Esther. This means that everyone in this movie is stupid and never bothers to dig up a little beforehand. Kate is able to connect the dots, but John is still adamant that Esther is the most lovable and sweet person in the world. After listening everything, Esther panics and goes to Max's room and tells her that a mean lady is coming to take her away. She asks Max for help and Max agrees. They sneak into John's office and begin to search around for the keys to the treehouse. Max finds some keys and hands them off to Esther. She uses the keys to unlock John's safe, where she finds a gun, partially loads it and points it directly at Max's forehead and asks Max if she wants to play. Max, clearly frightened, shakes her head and Esther lowers the gun. Max and Esther rush to the bridge that isn't far from the house, and they know Sister Abigail's car will pass it. Sarcastically, no one noticed them because people in this movie aren't only stupid but blind. Anyway, Esther tells Max to stand in front of Sister Abigail's car and wave her hands to get her to stop, but Max is nervous. As Sister Abigail comes driving along, Esther pushes Max onto the road and Sister Abigail slams on the brakes and her car swerves off the road. Sister Abigail climbs out of her car and rushes to a hysterical Max. Just then, Esther beats on her head with a hammer. She forces Max to help her move Sister Abigail's body before another car comes along. They push her body down a hill, but Sister Abigail regains consciousness and tries to climb back up. Esther grabs the hammer and beats Sister Abigail until she is pretty bloody and definitely dead. Esther takes a traumatized Max up to the treehouse and removes her bloody gloves and dress, but Max is still crying. Esther says that if she is caught for the murder, then Max will also go to jail for helping her. In a threatening tone, she tells Max that she won't tell on her if she doesn't tell on Esther. Max agrees and Esther comforts her. As the two are climbing down from the treehouse, Danny watches from afar and Esther spots him but walks away anyway. As Danny sleeps, he is startled awake when Esther holds a box cutter blade to his throat and asks him what he saw. He says that he only saw her and Max coming down from the treehouse, and Esther says that if he tells anyone then she will castrate him. Danny, clearly upset, accidentally wets himself. She releases Danny and leaves the room calmly. The next day, John finally gives in and he and Kate take Esther to Dr. Browning. So here comes another stupid woman because Dr. Browning says that Kate is the one at fault and not Esther. Seriously? Kate is further frustrated when John doesn't even back her up and just remains quiet the entire session, further estranging the couple. When they return home, Kate receives a call from the orphanage and is informed about Sister Abigail's death. Her frozen body is discovered at night, but the police is unable to find any evidence. The next morning, Kate is dropping Danny and Max off at their schools. Kate asks if Esther has done anything to hurt them. Terrified of Esther, they both say no and Danny hops out of the car. On the other hand, John goes to wake Esther and get her ready for an appointment at the dentist. Esther startles him by leaping out from underneath the covers because he deserves it. She says that she doesn't want to go to the dentist, and John instantly gives in to her demand as long as they reschedule. She goes to his office to draw with him and says that she has waited a long time for a father like John. Esther expresses that she feels that Kate doesn't love her, but John says that it isn't true. He suggests that perhaps she should do something nice for her, and she agrees. As Kate is in the kitchen, Esther comes and says that she has a surprise for her. She holds out a bundle of white roses that Kate recognizes instantly. They were the roses from baby Jessica's dedication garden. Kate snaps and grabs Esther by the arm, and Esther lets out a scream. John hears the commotion and Esther runs off sobbing while John comforts Kate, who is weeping openly, as she crumples on the floor and looks down at the roses. While Kate is in the greenhouse, still upset about the orchids, Esther sneaks into the tool shed and grabs a screwdriver. She wraps it in a rag and places it in her mouth, and then places her arm inside of a vise. She tightens the vise until her arm breaks and then goes to bed and cries for John that her arm still hurts from where Kate grabbed her. Horrified by the bruises on Esther's arm, John takes her to the doctor. Kate goes up to her bedroom and sees Esther laying in her and John's bed and being comforted by John. He tells Kate that she broke her arm, but Kate argues that she didn't really grab Esther that hard. John says that it would be best for Kate to sleep downstairs. Kate contemplates drinking but decides not to, after seeing the pawn that almost cost Max her life. She pours the wine down the sink and sleeps downstairs. The following morning, Kate is dropping the kids off at their schools, and it can be noticed that Esther's arm healed up completely in just one night, which is nonsense. As Danny walks up the steps, his book bag spills, which is far more confusing for Kate because the bag was new. As Kate helps him, Esther leaves the car, releases the brake, and sets the car in neutral. The car rolls down a hill, and Danny quickly warns Kate since Max is still in the car. Kate chases the car, and people try to stop it, but it does no good. Finally, the car hits a huge pile of snow, which causes it to stop suddenly. Kate rushes towards the car and quickly pulls Max out, who is thankfully unharmed. That night, Kate argues with John and Dr. Browning about what happened. Kate swears she had set the parking brake, but John is still in a bit of disbelief. At that moment, John places a wine bottle out on the table. He tells Kate that Esther found them, which simply infuriates Kate, but John simply asks if Kate is beginning to drink again. Dr. Browning is wondering the same thing as well. Kate defends herself again and says that she thought about drinking the wine but poured it down the sink. Finally, John drops the bombshell that if Kate doesn't go into rehab, he will divorce her and take the kids with him. At the top of the stairs, Max listens in as Esther comes really close to her and whispers that she will shoot her mom if she tells. After a while, Danny sneaks to Max's room and asks her if she knows anything about Esther's crimes. Max confesses by showing Danny the pictures of Brenda's accident, Sister Abigail's death, and the car accident. Max also tells him that the hammer and Esther's bloody clothes are up in the treehouse. Danny tells Max that once they get the hammer, John and Kate will believe them and Esther will be locked away. Unfortunately, Esther overhears the entire thing, because what else can we expect in such movie plots? At midnight, Kate plans to escape with her kids but finds Esther in Max's room, covertly surveilling Max. Esther talks in a threatening tone and blames her for the car crash. She also read everything from her secret diary and ridicules her for her mistakes in the past. Kate calls the orphanage the following morning and asks about Esther's record, but they don't have anything on her since everyone in this movie is very intelligent. At the same time, Danny sneaks up to his treehouse and searches for the hammer and clothes but can't find them. Esther suddenly appears because she magically knows everyone's movements, I guess. She throws the hammer and the clothes to the floor and tells him that Max will be arrested too for helping her, but Danny says that Max was forced to do it. Esther pours lighter fluid over the evidence and lights a match, setting the evidence in the treehouse on fire. She escapes and locks the treehouse up with Danny still inside it and simply watches with a smile as Danny screams for Kate. Danny crawls out a window, but it's too late and the treehouse crumbles. Danny is rendered unconscious and completely broken but miraculously alive. As Esther lifts a rock to finish him off, Max pops out of nowhere and pushes Esther before she can do anything. Kate arrives just in time and suspects that Esther might be involved. At the hospital, the family waits for word on Danny's condition. A doctor comes and says that Danny is alive and in stable condition, but they'll have to wait a while before they ask him anything. Kate and John walk away for a while, and this movie is so predictable that we all know what is going to happen next. Esther asks Barbara for $1 for the soda machine and then walks out of the waiting room with no intention of getting a simple drink. She sneaks into Danny's room, removes the heart monitor from his finger, and puts it on her own so no one will know there is a problem. Max, getting the feeling that Esther is up to something, goes to get Kate. Esther tries to suffocate him with a pillow, and literally no one in the hospital is noticing anything. Thinking she has killed Danny, she puts the monitor back on his finger and alarms go off. The doctors rush down the hall to Danny's room. Kate and John panic, but breathe a sigh of relief when Danny has a pulse and is stabilized again. Kate freaks out and knows Esther did something. She screams at Esther, calls her a bitch, and then slaps her hard. Orderlies sedate Kate while John comforts Esther and watches sadly as his wife drifts to sleep. When Kate wakes up, she is groggy but sees John is with her. She asks if Danny is okay, and John says that they are running some tests and he should be home in a few days. He also says that he is taking Esther and Max back to the house. Kate makes him promise that Esther will get nowhere near Max, but he says nothing and leaves the room to take the girls home. As John is tucking Max in, Esther comes into the room, wishes her sweet dreams, and secretly steals her hearing aid. John finishes putting Max to bed and Esther walks away. Max soon falls asleep and John leaves the room. John, clearly upset by all that has happened, finds the wine and pours quite a few glasses. Suddenly, Esther comes downstairs wearing dark makeup and a strapless dress, but John is so drunk that instead of getting angry, he sobs openly and tells Esther that he is scared for Danny. Esther assures him that he is a wonderful husband and father, and also tells him that she loves him. When Esther comes on to him, John comes back to reality and yells at her to go to her room. Esther runs to her room, sobbing hysterically as the makeup streams down her face. Meanwhile, Kate is resting in the hospital when she gets a call on her cell phone. It is a doctor from the CERN Institute in Estonia. He says he received the picture of Esther and asks where she is. Kate says that she is at the house with her husband. The doctor tells Kate to call her husband immediately and tell him to get their family out of the house and call the police. He then explains to Kate that Esther's real name is Lena Klammer and she has a rare disorder called hypopituitarism, which causes dwarfism. She was born in 1976 and is actually a 33 years old mature woman. Kate is in disbelief and asks why she was at their mental institution. The doctor explains that she was one of their most violent patients and she was forced to wear a straitjacket to keep her from hurting their staff. She constantly tried to fight her way out of the straitjacket and has scars on her neck and wrists, which was why she wore ribbons on her neck and wrists. The doctor also said she disappeared a year ago and they lost track of her. The scene cuts to Esther removing her fake teeth and taking off her makeup, finally revealing her real mature face. John goes on the search for Esther in her room but finds she isn't there. Gut in the black light of the aquarium, he sees Esther's paintings for what they really are, images of violence and sex. John is mortified but continues on the search, just as the lights go out. He goes downstairs to the electric panel and is stabbed by Esther repeatedly, which was quite unexpected since he was the protagonist. She eventually kills him, then looks at the top of the stairs and sees that Max has witnessed the whole thing. Max runs off and hides as Esther grabs John's gun from the safe and goes on the search for Max. Thankfully, Kate has escaped from the hospital and races to the house. The road is so slick that when Kate arrives, she crashes through the house and alerts Esther, who is upstairs searching for Max. Kate discovers John and breaks down, but her concern lies with Max. Esther finds Kate and shoots her in the shoulder, but Kate is okay and continues the search for Max. We see that Max is in the greenhouse and hiding behind the plants. She is relieved when she sees Kate on the roof of the greenhouse, but Kate tells her to be quiet because Esther is also there. Just as Esther is about to discover Max, Kate screams and Esther shoots at her. The roof is made of glass, so the bullet shatters it and Kate comes crashing down on top of Esther. Max waits anxiously before Kate regains consciousness and grabs Max to escape. Kate takes Max down to the pond and comforts her, just as she sees police cars pull up to the house to arrest Esther, but we all know what's coming. When the police enter the house, they search the entire household, but Esther is gone. At the pond, Kate is continuing to comfort Max when Esther suddenly lunges at her with a knife. Kate and Esther wrestle each other down a hill and right onto the pond, with Max watching on in terror. So it's time to wonder that where the hell are those stupid cops at this moment? I think the cops are also deaf and blind in this movie. Anyway, the gun flies out of Esther's hand as she and Kate wrestle, landing only a few yards away from Max. Max grabs the gun and holds it up, being only 4 and not knowing how to fire. Max aims and shoots the ice instead of Esther. The ice cracks and breaks, and both Esther and Kate fall into the freezing water. They both fight underwater with the knife. As Kate is climbing out of the water, Esther pops up and grabs onto Kate's legs, the knife hidden behind her back. Esther begs for help and also calls her mommy, but Kate finally loses it and kicks Esther, breaking her neck and sending her back into the freezing water. Esther sinks into the icy water, and Kate escapes with Max as those blind cops finally begin to see.